And as protest continues in Kenya, the head of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat, has expressed deep concern on Tuesday over the deadly unrest sparked by anti-tax protests in Kenya. In a statement, Mahamat urged for a calm and called on all parties to refrain from further violence. The protests escalated into violence, with police firing live rounds at demonstrators, leading to fatalities and extensive damage, including the storming and ransacking of Kenya's parliament. Mahamat appealed to Kenya's national stakeholders to engage in constructive dialogue to address the underlying issues that sparked the protests, emphasizing the importance of prioritizing Kenya's stability and well-being. The African Union reaffirmed its solidarity with the government and people of Kenya, urging them to uphold peace and security across the country. And joining me now on the news for an update on the situation in Kenya, George Kimado, Executive Director, Tuza Kenya Initiative, joins me live via video chat. George, thank you so much for coming on. Let's just get started quickly because we're pressed for time. How do you think the Kenyan government's response to the protests, including the use of force, will impact the country's political stability and even international reputation moving forward? I just saw on the news about a few hours ago, a conference that the president was supposed to give a keynote speech on has now been cancelled. But let's hear your thoughts, please.
Good morning. Thank you very much for that. First and foremost, the protests were very peaceful initially. And I think the government involvement on the latter times and causing the violence that occurred there was very, very bad in terms of reputation for the country. You know, we have made very good gains, even internationally. And if you look at the president's recent travels and the network that he has made time and time again internationally, that reputation of Kenya as a peace haven is badly damaged. Just yesterday, the first 400 policemen that were sent to peacekeeping in Haiti landed this morning, actually. So the question that comes in is, if Kenya is participating in peacekeeping missions abroad and you have issues locally, then how does that leave you, in terms of the national community? I mean, in their eyes, then it's like a house that is not in order. And that is not good for the country. And I think and then the other thing that we keep asking is, this protest started last week and there was no violence at all. The turn of events yesterday was quite unprecedented, and I think it takes a lot of effort by the government to restore order. Today, things are quiet, but back to your question, in terms of reputation, that has been quite damaged, and it's not good for the country.
George, I can only imagine, and our hearts goes out to those who have lost their lives, giving the reports, and those who are even injured, and those who are on the front line clamoring for change in Kenya, which is just was initiated by the financial tax bill. Now we're going to take a very short break. George, I need you to just hang on with me. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue more. This is News Now on News Central TV. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. Hey, welcome back. Now, before the break, we were talking about the protests in Kenya as Mahamat, who is the head of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat, have expressed deep concern over the deadly unrest sparked by anti-tax protests in Kenya. And earlier, joining me via video chat was George Kimado, who is Executive Director, Tuza Kenya Initiative. George, thank you so much for holding on right there for us. Before the break, we were talking about how the protest started out very peacefully, and by yesterday, it pretty much just, metamorphosed into a civil unrest at this point, and it became very violent. But what are the factors what factors do you believe are driving the protests in Kenya? Now, besides at first we thought it was a financial tax bill that was now signed. And even though the government has moved to say, okay, we're going to take back some of this statements that we've made, we'll still leave the tax as is. This is now metamorphosed into a different type of protest. So what do you think is fueling this protest at this point? And how do you think the government could address the underlying grievances of the protesters?
All right, thank you very much for that question. Number one, I think the finance bill was just the trigger, or what you call the last strike that broke the camel's back. There has been simmering issues in Kenya about unemployment. There's been a lot of frustration in terms of the economic downturn that has been there. The promises that were made by the current government, which is barely 2 years in office, there is a lot of disaffection against the ruling political class because of those promises that were made have not been met. So there was a lot of things that were simmering on the ground. So when the finance bill came, and then just like last year, there was a step that you take before it is taken back to Parliament, something called public participation, whereby the public gives its views. Again, just like last year, over 90% of the people gave the views that a lot of things in that bill should be removed. Then people go back to Parliament, the MPs, and then the same thing that people say they should not be included, they're unchanged. So it seems like it's an exercise in futility. So I think this was just a trigger. So people are also protesting the kind of the corruption in government, wastage of government resources. You are asking people, as a president, for instance, you're telling people to tighten their belts, that we are going through tough times, but then the people around you, and even you yourself, there's a lot of wastage in government.
Right.
So people are getting...
Now, George, then how then can the government address the grievances? Because we're pressed for time very quickly. How can they effectively address these grievances? Because you're saying now that this is long awaited, and this particular move by the government was what broke the camel back. What can they do?
Dialogue. But then there are three things that the government needs to do. Even as to dialogue, but fundamentally it's about dialogue. Call people together, call all the stakeholders together, let them talk, let them seek consensus amongst people on the things that are affecting them. But principally, there's the issue of more so the youth, because just to take you back a little bit, is that much of this, the protests have been led by the youth, right? People between 18 to about 35 years. Those are the main participants in these protests. So there's need to seek consensus and seek people's views, and then stick to what people talk about. But then number two things, there's the issue about corruption, which people feel is the largest driver of the economic downturn that people are facing, and then also to curb government wastage. But fundamentally, the government needs to talk to its people.
Well, George, I want to say thank you so much for just being patient and just giving us your insight. If one wants to look at the case in Kenya and the entirety of Africa, corruption literally is the bane of our existence. But George, thank you so much for coming on.